Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores. I know I'm late, but I've just been busy all day. I saw the news. I wasn't even home until late today, and then we just did the Commanders King stream, so make sure you go check that out. If you missed that stream, go rewatch the entire thing, because we probably talked about a lot of things that you're probably curious about, including this Jonathan Allen thing. But I'm here today with this video to break down everything concerning this Jonathan Allen situation and how he's been given permission to seek a trade, he and his agent. Also, of course, we got to dive into Jonathan Allen's potential trade value. We got to dive into some replacement options for if we do end up trading or cutting him. How much money would we save? What are some example trades out there that we could potentially look at, maybe including Jonathan Allen in a trade package for a better player with some draft picks? Also, Adam Peters spoke on the situation. We have so much to talk about concerning this entire situation. And of course, I have your fact of the day for February 25th, so make sure you stay tuned to the end of the video for me to give you that. And before we dive into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content, and make sure you stay tuned for everything NFL draft, anything free agency, whether it's rumors, actual trustworthy reports. I will be breaking down the Adam Peters press conference. I know it happened technically by the time y'all are watching this yesterday, February 25th, but I still will. I plan on breaking down a lot of the most notable things that he said in that press conference, along with what Dan Quinn is going to say tomorrow / by the time most of y'all are watching this today. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that. Make sure you pull back up on the channel. Without further ado, let's go dive into the video, man. Let's get it. Adam. Alright, so I have this video broken down in several different sections and categories. First of all, we got to talk about what's going on. Then I want to take some time to really salute Jonathan Allen for everything that he's done for us. I feel like that's important. Also, I want to break down what's most likely to happen between trade, cut, restructure, pay cut, whatever. We're going to dive into all of the options and which is the most likely. Also, of course, we got to talk about Jonathan Allen's trade value. Then we're going to talk about some fun trade examples that we can get into that may be possible. Then we have to talk about how do we replace Jonathan Allen after he's gone. Then we got to talk about Daron Payne. Is he next to get cut or traded? And then lastly, we have Adam Peters speaking on the situation, and then some final thoughts as well from my point of view. Now, let's go ahead and dive into it. So what is exactly going on here? Well, first of all, I saw from Jordan Schultz that he reported the breaking news. Commanders defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, who has 1 year remaining on his deal, was informed by the franchise that he has permission to seek a trade per sources. And that's the NFL Combine for you, man. You already know, once you have all of these people, all of these important decision makers, agents, players, all of this stuff going on all in one place, one building at the same time, things are gonna heat up, and that's when the fun starts for the offseason for real. Really, like between the Super Bowl and up to the Combine, it's not really much going on. Now the Combine gets here, and within just a couple of days of people even pulling up to the Combine, we already have breaking news like this for the Commanders. You have like the Bills re-signing one of their better receivers. Like, this is when things start to really happen. Everybody's in the same place. It's just naturally what comes with it. And then Ian Rappaport even tweeted about it. Like, this is pretty big news. He said the Commanders have had trade conversations centered around Pro Bowl defensive lineman Jonathan Allen. I feel like that's an important piece of information. It sounds like we've been asking around the NFL to see what they may want to give up for a potential Jonathan Allen trade. He also finished by saying Washington plans to do right by the player, and Allen's camp is involved in helping him land at the right spot. So they're not just going to trade him somewhere terrible just because it's probably the best value we can get in return in a trade. They want to make sure that it's a mutually beneficial situation between both the Commanders and Jonathan Allen, his agent, to where Jonathan Allen goes somewhere that he actually wants to be as well. Either via trade or free agency, he has 1 year left with $15 million. Then John Com even tweeted, as others have reported, Jonathan Allen has been granted permission to seek a trade. Was going to be hard to have him play at this current cap hit, so either had to extend at a lower price, take a pay cut, or part ways either through free agency or trade. And again, we're going to dive into those four options later on in the video, which is the most likely. And so shouts out to Brian Manning of Commanders Wire. He said, on Tuesday, Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports reported that the Commanders granted Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade. Allen, at 30 years old, has spent his entire 8-year career with Washington. The number 17 overall pick in the 2017 draft, Allen signed a 4-year, $72 million extension in 2021 and has 1 year remaining on his contract. However, he has no guaranteed money remaining on his deal. That's going to be an important piece of what's going on as far as trade value. We're going to discuss that as well later. All 32 teams are represented at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis this week. Washington General Manager Adam Peters is expected to speak to the media on Tuesday. Again, that's already happened. I'm going to break that down later on, probably tomorrow / by the time y'all are watching this later on today. Allen tore his left pectoral muscle in week 6 in a loss versus the Baltimore Ravens. Initially believed to be out for the season, Allen returned to the lineup in week 17 after it was revealed he suffered only a partial tear. Allen played in Washington's final 2 games and all 3 playoff games, and he balled out against the Lions. He wasn't really good against the Eagles, but against the Lions, hey, that's a guy that's worthy of some serious draft capital. We're going to get there as well. A longtime team captain, Allen made the Pro Bowl in 2021 and 2022. He has 42 career sacks, and Jones reported that several teams have already called the Commanders about Jonathan Allen. That's a pretty important piece of information right there as well. Sounds like Jonathan Allen has a market. And that's good for Jonathan Allen from his point of view because, again, it's more likely that he ends up landing somewhere that he actually wants to be and not somewhere where he has to go. But most importantly, from the Commander side of things, if there's a market for Jonathan Allen, if there are multiple teams that are interested, then maybe we get to a point where they start to slightly outbid each other. I'm not saying to the extent of like a Myles Garrett where you start throwing in first-round draft picks and players and things like that, but maybe his trade value can rise up just ever so slightly because one team wants Jonathan Allen slightly more than another team wants Jonathan Allen. So we'll see where this goes. Hopefully that's what takes place based off of the reporting that we're seeing. Also, I already felt like it was highly unlikely that we keep both Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne going into this 2025 season anyway, especially with this deep defensive tackle draft class, arguably the deepest defensive tackle draft class we've seen in recent memory. And it definitely makes sense to see what we can get in return at this point where Jonathan Allen is in his career, because he's a depreciating asset. You know, every day that passes, the older he gets, the more his value drops. So let's see what we can get in return as far as draft capital and cap space relief as soon as possible. And even though I'm sad to see Jonathan Allen leave for sentimental and loyalty reasons, this is a business. And it's good that the Commanders are giving him and his agent a chance to find the best landing spot for him. And hopefully somewhere that is mutually beneficial for both teams like we already talked about. And it's a great timing really for both sides because everybody again is in one place. General managers, head coaches, team decision makers, whoever it is, team president, whatever, and also players agents. So Jonathan Allen's agent will just be able to go around and shake hands with teams and see like directly face to face, not just making a whole bunch of calls. He can talk to these people face to face and see what the market and potential trade value may be for what teams want in return for a Jonathan Allen. And most importantly, for Jonathan Allen's sake, his agent can go around and see, okay, what teams are maybe potentially willing to give Jonathan Allen more guaranteed money and or a newer long-term contract to where instead of this just being his last year of his contract in 2025, maybe there's a team out there that's not only willing to trade for him, but willing to also sign him to like 2 or 3 more years to extend his contract so he can make more money and things like that, because tomorrow's never promised. So this is a perfect opportunity for his agent to just go around, shake hands with a lot of team leaders and see what's going on. Basically get a checking the temperature of the NFL landscape right now. Then also shouts out to Grant Paulson, because I agree. The Commanders allowing Jonathan Allen to look for a trade partner shouldn't surprise anyone. Turning 30, coming off of a major injury, final year of his deal, $22.4 million cap hit, no guaranteed money left, easier to move. Good player, solid leader, but drafting Johnny Newton probably was a sign of this to come. Even though I wouldn't go that far yet, because Johnny Newton hasn't shown us yet that he can step up and replace Jonathan Allen just yet. But I am excited about Johnny Newton's future. We're going to dive into that later when we talk about potential Jonathan Allen replacements. But we're still in the what is going on section right now. Shouts out to Commanders Realm, because I agree. He said this is sad, but not unexpected. They weren't going to pay both defensive tackles top in money anymore. I thought J.A. played well when he returned from the injury, but the unit as a whole struggled. Drafting Newton kind of sealed it for him. Glad he got to be a part of at least one good season with the Commanders, and I completely agree with that. That last season right there, I mean, all of that Jonathan Allen had to go through, I'm happy that he at least got one good season out of the burgundy and gold in his career here. I feel like he deserved it because he's been through a lot, man. He went through a lot of losing that wasn't necessarily his fault, so at least he got to go to an NFC championship with us before he ends up potentially leaving. Also, shouts out to Titus Jones on Twitter. He said Jonathan Allen or Payne haven't played nowhere near their cap hits, and so this is basically the business side of the NFL, unfortunately, and this makes sense. Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne are not playing to the level of the cap hits that they're costing the Commanders, so at least one of them has to go. We're going to talk about maybe potentially both have to go. We'll get there again later in the video. Then shouts out to Air Raid Concepts. He said trading Jonathan Allen is the forward-thinking move this organization has never made, and basically until before Adam Peters got here. I love the fact that we're being proactive now. You know, Bill Belichick was always known for being very proactive when looking at a player's career, lifespan, potential, productivity, and things like that. You're better off trading a player too early than too late. That's what Bill Belichick was great at, and that's why they had such long-term sustained success. And Adam Peters has been doing that since he's gotten here, trading away Sam Howell when some people felt like we shouldn't. Somehow trading away Jahan Dotson for a third-round pick. You know, that boy Adam Peters hasn't been playing. He's not afraid to make moves, man. We've traded for players. We've traded away players. I trust Adam Peters in this situation. I feel like Adam Peters is really about to put his big boy pants on. I wouldn't be surprised if Jonathan Allen ends up getting involved in some move that even potentially brings over like a wide receiver 2 or maybe at least a wide receiver 3, like a Cooper Kupp or Deebo Samuel level guy. But again, we'll get to that later as well when we're talking about trade possibilities. Now on to the section where I want to definitely make sure I salute Jonathan Allen. I got to. First of all, shouts out to Ref the District because I completely agree. I'm here for the Jonathan Allen trade ideas. I'm not here for the Jonathan Allen slander. I'm right with him 100%. Shouts out to Burgundy Blog. He said Jonathan Allen has been a very good calm skin, Commanders and Redskin combined. Glad we drafted him. Glad we had him. Factor in age, injury history, and other capable players at his position, trying to deal him right now seems perfectly pragmatic. I agree. And don't get me wrong, I really appreciate everything Jonathan Allen did for us. But you can't be overpaid at the deepest position in this upcoming draft. Like, the stars literally aligned for Jonathan Allen to be a strong candidate this season. This was pretty much inevitable. The age, the no guaranteed money, and the position you play is the deepest it's been in the draft in years, and arguably the deepest class out of any position group out of the entire draft class. It's just meant to be. And then shouts out to B Mitch because he brings up a good point about Jonathan Allen as well. He said, quote, "That's the business of football. I dealt with it. Art Monk even dealt with it. Hell, Joe Montana even dealt with it." Unquote. And that is the part, like, that's the business side of the NFL that, you know, you got to let emotions go sometimes. Sometimes it's all about business and how we can improve our team and get better. Shouts out to Al Galdi. He said Jonathan Allen is one of the best interior defensive linemen in Washington history. Much respect. And much respect to Adam Peters for running football operations via prioritizing production over emotion and doing what's best regardless of the sentiment. This is how you get good and stay good. I completely agree. And then shouts out to George Carmi for quote tweeting it and saying, great perspective. Allen has been a stalwart captain for quite some time, but the Payne and Allen experience has run its course and they're not productive at the value that they currently hold. Basically, they're not producing to the level that their cap hit says that they should be producing. If you can get some assets for Allen, you're proactively building towards the future. I completely agree, and I want to do that. And shouts out to Disco to finish off this section. I will not slander Jonathan Allen on his way out. He's been solid, and I wish him the best. I completely agree. Now let's talk about, out of all of the possibilities of what could happen, what's the most likely to happen? And first of all, he's a $22.3 million cap hit in 2025, right? If he stays on the team. But if you cut him, you take on a $6 million dead cap. So if you cut him or trade him, you would save over $16 million in cap space. And even though I wouldn't be surprised if a team tries to get us to eat some of that cap hit and share some of it with them in order to make the trade happen to where like we don't save as much money and then the other team doesn't have to pay them as much money, and maybe eating a little bit more cap space in the trade could get us a higher pick in return. Maybe would you be willing to do that to where we get less cap space in return for trading them, but then you end up getting a higher draft pick? It's a very fluid situation. This is a lot of moving pieces here. Can't wait to see what actually becomes of it. Also, ignoring sharing some cap hit with this new team potentially, and if you're just talking about cutting or trading Jonathan Allen for the additional $16.3 million cap space that would normally take place, that would take us to a total of over $96.3 million in cap space, which would take us from third most cap space in the entire NFL to second, right ahead of the Arizona Cardinals. And I believe that they are trying to load up on cap space for a reason this offseason. I feel like we're more likely to repeat last year's offseason than to go get huge names like T. Higgins and things like that. But they're trying to create more cap space for a reason. Now, I also feel like there's an element of this where maybe Jonathan Allen approached them about trying to get more guaranteed money, and they were like, there's no way with how you've played the last couple of years, especially last year specifically, that you expect us to give you more guaranteed money. If anything, we'll just take that $16.3 million worth of cap space back. You can go if that's how you want to treat it. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see how that goes. Also, John Com, he ranked the possibilities in order of most likely and to least likely. Number one at the top, he said trade is the most likely out of all scenarios of how this can end up going. Number two is cut. So he feels like even if we can't trade him, we'll just cut him. Then there's number three of letting them stay. And then he said dead last, the least likely option, the almost nearly impossible option that he has no way of seeing it happening, is if we give him some type of extension to make him cheaper. And he completely, I guess a distant fifth. I feel like that fourth option of an extension was a distant fourth. I feel like even a distant fifth from that fourth is that Jonathan Allen takes a pay cut. He would never agree to that. So right now, your most likely realistic options are trade number one, gap, cut number two, gap, let them stay. Probably a distant gap, a bigger gap between cut and let them stay than the gap between trade and cut. Sounds like basically we're either going to trade them or we're going to cut them. Those are the most likely scenarios according to John Com. And I'm pretty sure he is gone. Because even just beyond the business part of all of this, just off of the fact that it would be a crazy look if he stayed with the team and played this season for us, knowing how weird it would be just off of the fact that the locker room and just how the locker room atmosphere would even be with everybody on the team knowing that he stayed even though the team didn't want him anymore. Like, especially as one of the leaders of the team as well. It's not like just some practice squad guy like Chris Rodriguez who would bring off of the practice squad, put him back on the practice squad, flip-flopping back and forth. This is Jonathan Allen here, ex-Pro Bowler from a couple of years ago, one of the main leaders of the locker room, the guy giving speeches and things like that. You know how weird and awkward that would be for him to return knowing that this team was even giving him permission to seek a trade. I just don't see it really working out. I've already given you the business side why it wouldn't, but also feel like just emotionally, even if you want to even take that into account, I just don't think I don't see him coming back. Just like Myles Garrett with that letter he wrote to his fans saying I'm out. And I don't know what's going on. And the general manager of the Browns sounds like he's standing 10 toes on not trading them, but he's going to end up trading them. We already know there's just no going back, even just locker room wise, for that letter that Myles Garrett put out there, basically saying goodbye to the Cleveland Browns fan base, and with how basically the Commanders are treating Jonathan Allen right now. I think he's gone no matter what, whether it's a trade or just a straight up release. But shouts out my boy Josh Taylor, because he feels a little bit differently, and I can see his point, because he said on Twitter, there's a major difference in putting a player on the trade block and allowing a player to seek a trade for a new contract. Adam Peters just said all things on the table, but wanted to do right by Allen to find a deal elsewhere if possible. It's not like they're saying, quote, we don't want him anymore, someone can trade for him, unquote. But again, by some of those other reporters, some of the quotes I just gave you earlier, it does actually sound like maybe they are ready to move on from him. Maybe Jonathan Allen was the catalyst for this, again, probably asking for more guaranteed money. And then now Adam Peters was like, well, now that you bring it up, actually, we do kind of want to go ahead and trade you. Who knows? We will probably never get any actual like real insight on what's going on behind the scenes. All I know is eventually Jonathan Allen's more than likely going to get traded or cut. And now, speaking of traded, let's dive into the trade value part of this video. Now, remember that teams were calling about Jonathan Allen back in like November 2023 leading up to that trade deadline that season. Maybe there's still interest out there from other teams, and like I said, like it was reported earlier, apparently there are teams out there calling about Jonathan Allen, and not us calling them calling us, especially since he doesn't have any guaranteed money left on his contract. It makes a lot of sense why other teams would be interested. And even though I don't think he's a high-level starting defensive tackle at this point, I still firmly believe that Jonathan Allen is still a starting level defensive tackle, just point blank period. There are teams out there that would definitely be better if they traded for Jonathan Allen. The problem is whether they feel like his cap hit is worth the issue. I feel like he's still a starting defensive tackle, but are you actually willing to give him all of that money that he's due? That's the problem, which is why I still feel like teams, like whoever trades for him, is probably going to ask for us to eat some of that cap in return. Shouts out to Linnell Willingham because he brings up a good point. Tough thing about Jonathan Allen's pending release, in a normal year, I think you get a good return for him. But this defensive class is loaded. Daniel Jeremiah says that he has 24 starter grades on defensive tackles in this draft. It's up from 12 last year. He had 12 in the 2024 draft. He feels like there's 24 starting level defensive tackles available in this upcoming 2025 draft, which is again unheard of. That's like arguably deepest defensive tackle class in NFL history type of stuff. Quote, this is the deepest defensive tackle class I can remember, unquote, from Daniel Jeremiah himself. And John Comm even said earlier today, well, by the time y'all are watching this, yesterday, that he expects for it to probably be like a 6th or a 7th round pick. And he also said that he feels like a 5th round pick would be great, but he feels like more realistically, it'll be a 6th or a 7th. Now, for me, and I'm joking mostly, but hey, a little bit serious, how about you just tell every team to please watch that Lions playoff game over and over again of Jonathan Allen. Make sure they don't look up his injury history. Make sure they can't look up his stats from the past 2 seasons somehow. Make sure they can't watch any other game of his but that Lions divisional round game. Because, I mean, just let his agent walk around with the Lions game all 22 on his phone or something all combine week and showing it to teams left and right. And, of course, I'm joking again, but that Lions tape looks like a guy that's worthy of literally a 3rd round pick at worst. Like, I'm not exaggerating. But the problem is, are you going to get that out of him on a consistent basis? Can he stay healthy? How long can he play at that level? How consistent can he play to that level game week to week? All of that type of stuff. I mean, maybe we could convince a team that we could sell them on the vision that Lions game of Jonathan Allen is the version that you'll be getting on a consistent basis somehow. Doubt we could sell anybody on that. Nobody was born yesterday, but you know, again, I'm joking, but that would be ideal. Also, shouts out to Air Raid Concepts again. He said if Allen stays healthy, he probably catches a 2-year, $40 million deal, assuming he's healthy and plays well. Factor in the future compensatory pick when discussing trade value. I can see 4th round value off of that. I'd acquire future picks because this draft class sucks. So basically, Air Raid Concepts is saying he prefer a 2026 draft pick or draft picks rather than some 2025 ones, which I'm not mad at, especially if we're talking about day 3. Day 2, I love this 2025 draft. Day 3 wise, or even day 1, I prefer 2026 as well. But also, again, to his point, compensatory pick value, maybe that's the floor for which you asked for in a trade in return for Jonathan Allen. That's a good point there. So maybe that's why we could potentially ask for maybe like a 4th, depending on what contract he ends up getting with his new team. That will determine what compensatory pick round we'll get. Shouts out to Colin Dunphy too. Shouts out to my boy Mofo Pod on Twitter. Oh, I mean, one of the biggest stat guys on Twitter you can meet. He said, I'm hoping for a 5th, but I think it'll be less because again, we could just cut him. So what team is going to be willing to give up anything more than a 7th or even a 6th round draft pick if we could just cut them and they sign them for free without having to give up any draft capital? Also, shouts out to my boy Ken Johannesson. He said he feels like that he sees maybe a 5th rounder, maybe even a 4th. But you have the 33rd team trying to hype him up. They have this graphic where they're trying to break down like his stats and act like Jonathan Allen is just this gem. Like it was like a sack leaders among defensive tackles, as you can see on the screen right now. Of the last 4 seasons, you have Jonathan Allen in 9th place with 25 and Daron Payne in 10th place with 24. And basically, this is like the most effective pass rushing defensive tackle since 2021. But it doesn't stop there. 33rd team also put up some stats about Jonathan Allen, saying that he has been one of the league's most productive defensive tackles in recent years. Allen ranks top 10 among defensive tackles over the last 4 seasons in total tackles with 199, that's 10th. Solo tackles with 121, that's 5th. Sacks with 25, that's 9th again. Pressures with 179, that's 7th. And tackles for loss is 39 with 7th. So, of course, you have a lot of people in the comment section of these 33rd team posts like, why would the Commanders even be willing to trade a guy that's been that great over the last 4 years? Well, you also have some people that are seeing through the 33rd team's manufactured hype. How they're basically only spotlighting and putting everything in a viewpoint to where Jonathan Allen looks better than he actually probably is. Because if you actually just change, filter it instead of a 4-year span, change it to the most recent 2 years, and then look at the stats, that's why the Commanders are trying to trade him, basically. That's basically what it exactly is right there. But we gotta remember that Adam Peters somehow got a 3rd rounder in return for Jahan Dotson. Now, granted, Jahan Dotson was way younger than Jonathan Allen is right now and is still on a very cheap rookie deal, but still, I'm not expecting to get a 3rd in return for Jonathan Allen. But my point is, maybe you got to adjust your trade projections for Jonathan Allen a little bit, put it up a little bit higher, taking into account the Adam Peters influence and ability to get more trade value than expected for players. Adam Peters has surprised us before. I wouldn't be shocked if he somehow gets more in a trade than any of us expect right now. I just wouldn't. That boy Adam Peters is a wizard, and it's the networking, it's the connections that he has around the NFL to where people just like him a little bit more, and they're willing to trade with him more than they probably would other people. Also, just finally, before we move on from this part of the video, I personally think the by far best case scenario, in my opinion, and this is probably slightly unrealistic, but somehow we trade Jonathan Allen for a 4th round pick. Matter of fact, that this isn't realistic at all. But my best case scenario would be to trade Jonathan Allen for a 4th round pick somehow, and then sign Cowboys defensive tackle Osa Odigizua, who Dan Quinn loves and has spoken highly of several times in the past. Honestly, if we don't end up signing Osa, I can bet you it won't be because Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. didn't want him. It would be because Adam Peters didn't give it the green light for so many reasons. Maybe Osa's asking for way too much money or something. But Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr. probably really want Osa Odigizua, especially even if we keep Jonathan Allen, I want Osa. Let alone if we cut him or trade him now, I feel like we need him even more. But this takes me to the next part of the video. Fun trade ideas. I've already seen several people saying that Jonathan Allen could be included in a trade for like Myles Garrett. And honestly, I saw people even saying that weeks ago before all of this Jonathan Allen chaos that just started yesterday. But now after this news, especially with all of this Jonathan Allen stuff, I'm seeing way more people say it now. But of course, Jonathan Allen is not anywhere near worth the same amount of value as a Myles Garrett. So even with Jonathan Allen included in the trade, we would still probably have to include multiple 1st round picks and eat some of Jonathan Allen's cap space to help the Browns with the Myles Garrett dead cap if they trade him. Because if the Browns trade away, this is one of the main reasons they don't want to trade him. First of all, he's a generational talent. But also, if they trade away Myles Garrett, he'll actually cost them more against the cap than if he actually just stays on the team. So you'll probably have to eat up some of that Myles Garrett and Jonathan Allen cap space. And hey, man, I'm for sure willing to do that. I just don't see that possibly being in the realm of actual realistic options. I don't think Jonathan Allen is going to be allowed to be a part of a trade that gets you a player as great as Myles Garrett. Or since Jonathan Allen probably isn't as worth as much as like us Commanders fans hope that he will be, don't be surprised if Jonathan Allen is using the trade to get like a Cooper Kupp or a Deebo Samuel, to be honest. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you to brace yourself for just in case it happens. It might be just Jonathan Allen straight up for one of those receivers with no draft picks involved. I wouldn't be surprised if we cut Jonathan Allen and then sign a Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuel, which would essentially feel like a trade from our end. So again, just don't shoot the messenger. Just don't be surprised if it happens. I see the Commanders being potentially very interested in either Cooper Kupp or Deebo Samuel, and they clearly want to get rid of Jonathan Allen, so I wouldn't be surprised if that switch ends up happening. Also, shouts out to Josh Taylor because he said could very much see Jonathan Allen traded for a player out west. I'm assuming he's probably alluding to either Cooper Kupp or Deebo Samuel, but we'll see. Or maybe one last fun trade idea, which is not very realistic though, is that, you know, like, and I'm just putting on my creativity hat right here, but what if the Bengals tag T. Higgins and then trade, so tag and trade T. Higgins, and then include Jonathan Allen in that trade to help lower the draft picks that we'd have to give them in value in return. Or maybe use Jonathan Allen in the trade to get Trey Hendrickson at edge rusher, and Jonathan Allen's a part of the trade package. We send them maybe like a first round pick or two, something like that. Maybe a Max Crosby or something like that. Again, I don't think it's very realistic to expect that Jonathan Allen will be a part of any trade package for a great player. But again, we're just kind of hypothesizing and brainstorming out here and just throwing out ideas. Now, most importantly, how do we replace Jonathan Allen after we trade him or cut him? Well, shouts out to MV Scouting, because I agree. He said Washington's gonna cut Allen, sign Osi Odighizuwa, and draft the 325-pounder in round 4. This is always gonna happen. I do agree with all of that. First of all, go get Osa. Like I said, I would go get Osa in free agency, even if Jonathan Allen stayed, let alone if Jonathan Allen's gone. Also, I do feel like we need to get bigger when it comes to the interior defensive line, the defensive tackles. No more guys in the 270s, 280. No, I want a 320-plus pounder defensive tackle now. We got to learn to stop the run. Osa is an elite pass rushing defensive tackle. Johnny Newton, we're hoping, can grow into an Osa type of player, but we need a guy that can truly stop the run. We need like a zero tech type of build type of guy. And so I think MV Scouting is spot on with that scenario. You probably end up cutting Allen since you can't trade him away. You go sign Osa, and then you find a really talented 325-pound defensive tackle in the draft, like 4th round or later. I also believe that Johnny Newton does have plenty of ceiling to tap into. I mean, you got to remember that Johnny Newton was coming off of 2 foot injuries and missed the entire offseason worth of practices. So essentially, he went in like as raw as a rookie could possibly do in a rookie season. I think he will be very noticeably better with his first healthy training camp. Injuries and lack of practice will do it to you. But even though I believe in Johnny Newton, I just prefaced all of that to say I believe in Johnny Newton, but that still would not stop me from going to get Osa Odighizuwa in free agency. Even before the whole Jonathan Allen trade or cut situation, I wanted to sign Osa. Now I feel like we need him after getting rid of Jonathan Allen. I love Johnny's ceiling, but I don't want to depend on him to reach his ceiling immediately. Hopefully one day he becomes, you know, the Johnny Newton that we hope. But I mean, while we're talking about Johnny Newton and Osa Odighizuwa, I feel like people should be way more excited about the potential of getting Osa, because Osa is literally and already who we hope Johnny Newton becomes one day. Why would you not want that, in my opinion? Like, especially since SpotTrack has Osa's market value very close to what Jonathan Allen is actually getting paid right now. You're better off just paying Osa a little bit more money than Jonathan Allen and getting way more value in production in return than Jonathan Allen. That's value, and that's how great teams keep getting better. It's crazy that Osa is projected to get a contract similar to what we're paying Jonathan Allen right now. I feel like that's an easy move for us to make right there. And we cannot play about the trenches. I can't stress it enough. The Eagles dominated the NFL this past season because they were the best in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And to have a chance at winning the Super Bowl, you got to go through them, and you have to get better than them in the trenches, or at the very least, close the gap just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So the trenches need to be a priority. I feel like defensive line and offensive line are even more of a priority than wide receiver this offseason. So start that with going to get Osa, and then addressing it some more in the draft, and then develop Johnny Newton, and we'll see. And then who knows what Daron Payne can give us. And speaking of Daron Payne, is Daron Payne next? That's the next part of the video. That's my next question. And straight to the point, Jonathan Allen is so easy to trade and so tradable because he has no guaranteed money left in his contract, while Daron Payne is not tradable right now because he does have guaranteed money left in his contract. Like, say, for example, if you tried to cut or trade Daron Payne right now with 2 years left in his deal, you would have to eat so much dick cap. Like, why would you pay him to not be on your team? He might as well just go ahead and stick around and play for you even if he doesn't start. It's better that than him not being on the team and costing you basically the same amount of money. Like right now, literally, cutting Daron Payne only saves you less than $1 million. He costs you $26 million against the cap on the team and still costs you $25.8 million to not be on the team. You're only saving basically $200,000 to not have him on the team versus having him on the team. I mean, that would be such a pointless move. So trading away Jonathan Allen, I just don't see it at all. So shout out to JP Finley for pointing this out, as you can see on the screen right now. He pointed out the fact that, interesting and telling, that of the Commanders' top 4 cap hits, only Payne has guaranteed money, and only Allen was given permission to seek a trade. I imagine extension talks with Terry McLaurin will be on tap. Lattimore is going to have to play without guaranteed money and show that he can stay healthy. But yeah, Daron Payne, you gotta go. Daron Payne is literally the least tradable player on our entire team right now. At least contract-wise. I'm not saying talent and production-wise like he's just this elite player, but contract-wise, he is literally the worst combination of a huge cap hit and has too much guaranteed money. He has more guaranteed money than even like Terry McLaurin right now, which is absolutely insane. So no, Daron Payne is not cuttable or tradable. He's going to stick around for at least one more year. Now, moving on, Adam Peters even spoke on the whole Jonathan Allen situation in his press conference at the Combine earlier today, well, technically yesterday. He said, quote, "We're always going to do what's best for our organization, but we also want to do right by John too," unquote. And I love that quote. That's why people love Adam Peters. That's why people want to play for him. That's why other team leaders and decision makers are willing to deal with them, because Adam Peters clearly cares. He could just be selfish and shop Jonathan Allen whatever team would give us the most value in return as far as draft picks or whatever and things like that. But no, Adam Peters is going out of his way to try to make it to where everybody's happy, to where Jonathan Allen also ends up on a team that he would be happy with and potentially gets the extension that he's looking for, and more money, more guaranteed money specifically. Also, he said, quote, "We wanted to be able to explore opportunities, so we let him do that." And he also said that Allen's agent will be at the Combine later this week and they'll reconvene. So he even wants to talk with Jonathan Allen's agent to see what they could do from here and things like that. But more than likely, I still think Jonathan Allen's going to end up leaving. But I thought that was an important piece of information, that Jonathan Allen's agent will be at the Combine soon, in like the next couple of days, and he and Adam Peters and probably other decision makers for the Commanders, including Dan Quinn, will be there to talk to each other. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, some final thoughts. Shouts out to Bleeding Burgundy and Gold, because I agree. He said 4 consecutive first rounders spent on defensive line, only 1 remains. Never do that again. I completely agree. And I mean, first of all, that isn't this regime's mistake at all. So let's get that out the way. And ignoring the previous regime's mistakes, because there's a long list of them, and moving forward to what this new regime, this current regime, is going to do in the future, I have the utmost confidence that Adam Peters will make the best decision possible. I'm just here to discuss what might happen, what might be, but I'm not trying to sit here and tell Adam Peters what to do at all. I wouldn't even dare. I'm just trying to run through all of the scenarios and possibilities for y'all. Make sure y'all are thinking outside the box as far as what's realistic, what's not realistic. We're just trying to cover all bases. But I would never dare to tell Adam Peters what to do. I fully trust in Adam Peters, and Adam Peters we trust. I give him the big benefit of the doubt, and I'm just assuming, I mean, completely stress-free, I think Adam Peters is going to find a great solution for this situation, get us some nice draft capital in return, or whatever happens. I'm excited. I trust him. And then also, even better, if they can somehow escape from both Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne's contracts, Payne's contract especially, I don't know how you would do it, because we already broke down all of that guaranteed money. It just makes no sense to trade him at all. But if they somehow found a way to finesse my boy Brandon Sosna up there in that front office, then we need to build an Adam Peters statue immediately. Highly doubt it happens though, but I just felt like that was one last imaginary, unrealistic thought that I throw in there before we get up out of here. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Do you feel like, what do you feel like is most likely if you had to rank them? Trade them, cut them, or keep them, extend him, restructure his contract, make him take a pay cut? If you had to put all of those options in order, what do you feel like is the most likely to happen, most realistic to least likely to happen, and least realistic? Also, let me know, like, trade-wise, what do you think we can get in return for him? Not only just draft picks, but maybe players. Do you think Jonathan Allen could actually be included in a trade for a player of Myles Garrett's caliber? Let me know how you feel about all of that. Daron Payne's contract situation. How do you want to replace Daron Payne? Are you as big of a Osa Odigizua fan fan as I am. Do you want to go defensive tackle in the first round to replace him? How do you feel about Johnny Newton as a potential replacement? Are you willing to depend on him immediately? So let me know how you feel about everything I discussed in the video. Let me know if you agree, disagree with any of my points. And of course, again, if you made it this far in the video, I salute you. Big salute. Really appreciate you for real, for real. And also, my fun fact of the day. Technically February 25th, even though a lot of y'all are watching this on February 26th, defensive tackle Jonathan Allen made the Pro Bowl for his second consecutive season in 2022. Wow. First of all, that was an easy fun fact that's just like, okay, thank you. Also, it's crazy that the fun fact for February 25th happened to be Jonathan Allen based. I'm not lying to y'all. This is my calendar that my grandma gave to me, and it's literally a Jonathan Allen fun fact. That's crazy. I ain't gonna lie. That's a big coincidence right there. But either way, again, really appreciate y'all. You made it this far in the video. You are a GOAT. I salute you. Make sure you leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.